Fran Brown would be an excellent hire for Florida State.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Back into Locked On Seminoles. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day, each and every day, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can bet $5, and if it hits, you will unlock $300 to use across the FanDuel app. We are going to be talking about several different things regarding the roster today, but none more important than recruiting. Florida State's recruiting class right now is number 13 by 24/7 Sports, and overall, it's a good group. We're going to kind of break down where they've done well, what they need to add to, and how they keep it together to the best of their ability in these uncertain times. To that end, we're definitely going to talk about the roster because it's not easy, to be really honest, for anybody to make this work with all the things going on with Mike Norvell, all the rumors and everything else. How does that work? We're going to break that down. And to start the show, if you take nothing else from this Locked On Seminoles podcast today, note the following. Fran Brown would be a really good hire. I'm going to break down why in several different points, but none more important than the following statement. He is an elite recruiter and one that cares about his players. When you put those two things together, you not only get them to campus, you keep them on campus. That's what Florida State needs. They've had too much uncertainty with their roster for a long time. So hear me out. Florida State is in a situation where I expect, as I've said many times here in the last week or so, that they really could end up changing coaches, and I think they will at the end of this season, and it's put things in flux. You're probably going to lose recruits, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when Syracuse hired Fran Brown, it was his first head gig, and he didn't start until 2024. That was his first season, so he's in year 2 with the Cuse. But he wasn't a guy that had lived in upstate New York. He's from Camden, New Jersey, somewhat close. He'd coached at Temple, but he'd been at Georgia most recently, so he knows what it's like to move around. He's coached at Baylor. I'll go through his whole resume momentarily, but he's been all over the place. But most notably, and where I met him, was on the recruiting trail in South Florida. Very personable young man, has the ability to adapt. He's somebody that doesn't really care where he's at, got a smile on his face, easy to get along with. Those kind of individuals will recruit well. And if you're good at recruiting in South Florida and you have natural ties to Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York on top of it, yeah, that's something I want to sign up for. He is one of the nation's best recruiters, being the head man at Syracuse. Imagine what Fran Brown would do with the Florida State logo on his shirt. Not just in the state of Florida, but nationally, in Maryland, in Virginia, in North Carolina, in South Carolina, in all the areas that Florida State normally recruits along the I-10 corridor, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. He's going to hit the home run there and occasionally go grab a kid from Philadelphia. Or maybe one of the counties in northern New Jersey right across the river from New York. There's a lot of talent there at all the public schools and the private schools. Can't go wrong. Yeah, he would do well. But again, it's not just that he can recruit. As I noted in the opening here, he's somebody that cares about his players. I've heard this from multiple people, and from being around him, you can tell he builds relationships. Relationships are what win recruiting battles. That's what starts it, but that relationship has to continue after you get a young man on campus and with his family, like his sister or his aunt, his brother-in-law, whatever it is. He does those things. That's why Syracuse is successful without as much talent as other teams. To that end, here is the Fran Brown coaching profile. He was born in 1982, so he's 43 years old. Born in Camden, New Jersey. He played football at Western Carolina. He ended up playing for the Bengals in 07 and 08 as a corner. So what is it, a long NFL career? But if you made it to the NFL, you're a pretty darn good athlete. His first coaching job was at Paul VI. It's a school in Haddon County, New Jersey. I didn't know much about it. But then 2 years later, all of a sudden, he's a GA at Temple. Then in 2013 through 15, he's the DB coach. In 2016, he's still the DB coach, but moved up in addition to that being the assistant head coach. Mr. Rule, remember him? Yep, that's the guy. He's now the head coach at Nebraska, but he took Fran Brown with him to Baylor. And in 2017 and 18, while he was at Baylor, he was also the assistant head coach while being the DB coach. He went back to Temple in 2019 to be the DC and the DB coach, or the co-DC, excuse me. In 20 and 21, he was at Rutgers as the DB coach. And in 22 and 23, he was the DB coach under one Mr. Kirby Smart. And again, that's when I met him. Elite recruiter. Cannot stress that enough, but he was also a good DB coach. Those teams were awesome. He was part of a national title team. He was a part of a team that was ranked number 1 the next year. He knows what it looks like. All those things together were good, but then you got to consider what he's done as a coach on the other side of the ball from the one he's known for. Usually defensive coaches, they're not real friendly with offense. Fran Brown's the opposite. Despite not having an elite offensive line in terms of run blocking and a stud running back that's going in the second round or something like that. Here are the numbers for Syracuse last year. This is 2024 numbers. Scoring, 21st in the nation, 34.1. Passing yardage, number 1 in the nation, 370. Rushing, 97.6, 126. They obviously didn't have the horses up front, so that was the one downside. Total offense, 467.6, 7th in the nation. They had wide receivers ranked number 31, number 46, and number 49 in the nation in yards per game. 3 guys in the top 50. That's insane. Kyle McCord threw for 367.6 yards per game, number 1 in the nation, and he was number 5 in touchdown passes with 34. Remember, Fran Brown is a DB by trade. He is a DB coach by trade. How many defensive coordinators do you know have an offense like that at a school like Syracuse, which, again, no offense to them, it's in northern New York. It's not a very good recruiting area. It's probably one of the bottom 10 to 15 schools in the country in the FBS in terms of recruiting location. Maybe even top 5 for the worst, or bottom 5, if you will. Yet he's still able to do that and get the offense rolling from year 1. Congrats to him on that. Now, here are a few of the questions that I have. Take these as you will. Can Fran Brown have a balanced offense? I say yes, because he's shown that he knows how to throw the ball around. He used what he had at Syracuse. He adapted. Coaches that adapt generally win and do so consistently. Prove me wrong on that, but I think he would adapt well. And at Florida State, like the running back room, could you imagine him with Chroma, being able to use him on sprint draws, occasional gap play, occasional inside zone? He'd average 5+ yards a carry, no problem. How long would it take to develop O-line, linebacker, and defensive end? Those are probably the 3 spots that have the most concern moving forward. I would say it would take 1 year of recruiting at each spot, and then by the middle of that next season, you'd start to see a lot of fruits of the labor, maybe even from game 1, because the portal's involved too. But I'm looking at this just from a recruiting perspective. Florida State's O-line's further along than people might know based on the talent on the roster. They just haven't played together. But next year, I expect at least 3 of the guys currently on the roster to start. You bring in 1 or 2 more guys from the portal. And then in 2027, you might display all the guys that are the young players. And then a few more guys you bring in that 26 or 7 class could end up being starters too, along with Mario Nash, Lucas Simmons, etc. Whoever it ends up being, that'll take care of itself. But Florida State's in a better spot there than people think. Linebacker would be my biggest concern. They've got Maycock. They've got Lavalley. Isaiah's a linebacker or a defensive end, but they need probably another guy there. And then if you really look at it, O-line, you could always take more tackles. They need another offensive tackle in this class, but the next class too. They should be okay in a year or so. And Fran Brown, again, he has experience recruiting in Georgia and Florida, so that means he knows the entire South because Kirby recruits nationally. Shouldn't be a problem. Now, when I said recruited Florida, how does that impact Florida State? It's really simple. There is no extra long answer here. You put the Florida State logo on, you already have relationships in the state, and you've coached for Kirby, you're going to be able to open doors. It won't be very difficult. The biggest question otherwise, staff. Who would he bring in for his offensive staff? How many would come from Syracuse? Who would he keep at Florida State? I'd be as curious as anybody else. We would have to see. Is he relatable? And I'm not talking about with recruits. I'm talking about with boosters, media, etc. He's done a pretty good job from what I've seen. And again, just for meeting him, I don't think it would be a problem. I really don't. And you adapt and you learn and you gain experience and you get better at those things. How you do an interview may influence a recruit. It may influence somebody that's on your roster, their aunt, their brother, somebody sees it and really likes it and says something to the player, hey, you should stay. Don't get in the portal. This guy's got something. I think Fran would do that. And then finally, can he beat Florida and can he beat Miami? And the answer to that is yes on both. The offense is already there. Kirby Smart doesn't hire fools to be his DB coach. Remember, Kirby played at Georgia at safety. So who he hires at the defensive back position matters to him. It matters a lot. He hired Fran Brown. That should give you some faith in that regard. And while I know that many people were thinking about Fran Brown in case the Florida State job came open, and again, I expect it to, this is a guy they should at least put on the list and interview. Recruiting, development, personality, offense, defense, he has a little bit of everything. The biggest question, again, is who would he hire in his staff? And that's one of those things that you'd have to work out if you interview the man. But overall, I think he would be a very, very good hire. When we come back, we're going to talk about the roster. How does Florida State adapt? How do you keep some of the guys there? What does it mean? No matter what happens down the stretch, how do they do this? We're going to talk about that next, right here on Locked on Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that helps you make a huge difference in your business is exactly that, Quo, formerly known as OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call that you have leaves money on the table. Whenever a customer conversation counts, you need to make sure your phone system keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying around 2 phones or a landline. With Quo, you're going to be able to get stuff done even when you're not near a phone because it's got an AI agent. It's going to have the opportunity to keep all your messages, all your texts, everything in one spot. So whenever you need to access it, you can get it done. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone. Get started for free and get 20% off your first 8 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's quo.com/lockedoncollege to keep everything in one spot. And even if you've got existing numbers, they'll quote them over for free. Quote, no missed calls and no missed customers. We are also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season's rolling. All the action right there for you with all the different things that are going on. Don't miss out because right now new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. If you haven't done so, just take a look. MVP odds, maybe it's receiver leading odds, best defense, all kinds of different things you can use. Of course, there are parlays, player props, and many other things as well. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and to get started. Thank you once again for making Locked on Seminoles a part of your day, each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Truly appreciate you stopping in to get everything situated and having some fun, talking about all the stuff going on with Florida State, and there's obviously a lot. Hit that like, subscribe, download, and share this podcast. If you're on Apple, hit that automatic download for me. Let's talk a little bit about Florida State's roster. I have no notes for this, and I don't need them because I'm just going to kind of go off what I just said a minute ago about recruiting, how they need to improve the roster, whether it's Fran Brown or somebody else. Linebacker, defensive line, specifically the edge positions, they need to be improved, and still a little more work, a little closer than I thought it was going to be at the offensive line spots with those guys coming up the ranks. Florida State's not that far away if they can keep everybody. But here's the reality. The message by Mr. Alford, while I'm sure it had all the best intentions, based on all the intel we have and my experience in the industry, I will be shocked if they don't lose at least 20 players in the offseason, and that's probably a low number. The real question is, can you keep the elite players? Even if it's a slow, dragged out, awkward situation where the next head coach doesn't get named right away. Remember, agents make money by increasing the contract. There's going to be some fighting, no matter who's hired, because the agents are always with the high leverage point, always. So this could drag out past signing day, which is unfortunate, but I expect it to because it's the first Wednesday in December. That's 4 days after the final game against the Gators, so that's pretty rough. And secondarily, you're talking about a program that's getting dragged through the mud everywhere right now. Schools are recruiting against them, everything. And it's probably the same deal with the roster. So all these things with players and roster management are in flux. But as it relates to the roster, I'm going to put a limit of about 35 that'll leave, but a bottom of 20. And that's unfortunate. I think whoever is the next head coach, even if it is a Fran Brown, is going to have a lot of guys come and go. New systems, new people, new strength and conditioning staff. There could be a million different parts. Be ready for that because that's the age we're in. Now, the ironic part is Florida State's had similar numbers even with Norvell here. And maybe some of the guys that leave, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But 2 extra points here. Number 1, I already mentioned, can you keep your elite players? One of those things, and this is awkward again, but I don't know what else to say. You got to pay the contracts for the people leaving, and you got to pay for the contracts for people coming, and you also got to pay for elite players. Do you think Mekhi Danzy's contract's going to increase? Chroma? Maybe somebody like a Mario Nash that's a possible starter for you fairly soon on the offensive line. Guys like that, Lucasson, you're going to have some tough decisions to make. And I'm not saying who you should or shouldn't. As an athletic administration, you guys need to figure that out, along with a new general manager, if there is one, if it's Fran Brown or whoever it is. Those are tough decisions. But if they screw it up on this first year, after Norvell's fired, they hire somebody, whoever it is, it really makes it difficult. Because this is the second year in a row Florida State has bombed. They are not in the stratosphere where they need to be. And I'm going to say so again. I know they're sitting with a 3-4 record right now and technically could still go to a bowl. I think going to a bowl is iffy because I don't think the players are checked in based on what I've read, based on what I've heard on podcasts, talking to people. This is starting to trend in the wrong direction. We'll know probably before halftime against Wake Forest. But if it trends badly, and I'm really hoping I'm wrong on this, against Wake Forest, 20 again will be a very low watermark. And maybe that's best. I don't know, but that's still a lot of change. So who knows what's going to happen with 2026. But you'd like to get some of those guys to stay and not really hold you over a barrel so you could add a few more players, but we shall see. When we come back, I want to talk about the recruiting class. How do you manage that? It is not as easy as you might think. That is next, right here on Locked on Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride in its IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards. It has more of those than anybody else as of August of 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings the same attention to how they craft every single model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you once again for checking out Locked on Seminoles today, which can conclude with something that is right in the middle of what I love to talk about, and that's recruiting. But this is the most difficult situation possible. The current staff isn't going to be able to give the answers to the people that they absolutely will require them to give. When will we know for 100% sure that Mike Norvell is going to be the coach? Those will be the types of questions they get. They can't answer that. It's awkward. So this is what's going to happen at some point. They have 25 commitments right now. I'll go ahead and make the prediction that 5 to 10 of those young men, at minimum, will at least take visits between now and the end of the regular season, unofficials, maybe some officials, to schools around the country. Because they're going to parlay this into a situation where, hey, I got to have options. If Norvell was fired and everybody's saying there's a chance he is, I got to have options. Don't blame him. It could be 15 to 20 of them. I don't know. Don't blame the kids, and don't be like the idiots that were sending Tony White's death threats on social media. Don't be those morons. Make sure you stay out of their DMs and all that. Leave the Florida State fandom out of your commentary if you're emotional about this. But we're going to see a lot of them take visits. Personally, if I was advising them as a high school coach, I would tell them exactly to do that. Make sure you have options before National Signing Day because, again, it's the first Wednesday in December. That's a few days after the Noles play the Gators in Gainesville. There's not going to be any time for the new head coach to go out on the road and recruit. The signing day and coaching carousel don't match up very well It is what it is. So you're going to see a whole bunch of them. But with that, again, let's talk a little bit about what they need. Can they at least get, and I guess it could be portal too, but can they get another pass rusher or something like that if they make Odell Higgins the interim coach? Probably. Could they get a local kid or maybe a panhandle kid that's an hour and a half away, a safety, a lineman or something? Sure. And I'm okay with that. The only thing that I ask, and again, he knows what he's doing. He's a legend. Don't waste scholarships. It's better to wait than to take some kid that's a complete developmental player. They need impact guys, which I know is going to be very difficult, but they really do. Are they going to be able to get that done? I have no idea, because beyond Odell, I have no idea how many guys on the staff right now. They're like players. Coaches call other coaches because it's a small business. Hey, is anybody on your staff leaving, et cetera? Do you know of any positions? And like, it's going to be that way across the country. There's going to be a lot of change. So if an assistant leaves for Florida State, it's possible that some of them are going to leave no matter what, because that's part of the business. You could see Florida State lose recruits for that too. That's just part of the normal attrition of recruiting in the NIL era and coaches moving around. And this might be the most volatile cycle in coaching history. LSU job could still possibly come open, although I did get a message today. They didn't think it would because Brian Kelly's owed like $53 million. That's a lot of dough. But jobs like that just possibly opening makes things go crazy. Florida job's already open. Penn State's already open. NC State could if Dave Doran steps down and retires. Virginia Tech is open. All of these different places are going to look to hire guys. And if somebody on FSU staff gets maybe a bonus in terms of how much money they're making, or maybe they get recruiting coordinator title or something like that, who knows? Bottom line, Florida State's in a scenario where they got to do the best they can with who they have. And I still think they've got some pretty darn good assistant coaches. Let's see how well they can keep guys on campus as much as possible for home games. Make sure you check, and like whether it's Noles 24/7 or Chant, whatever it is, or this podcast too, let's check and see how many kids are coming to Florida State home games. That's going to be my first thing with how much that's going to happen. And then secondarily, are there any new recruits or any guys they've been recruiting for a long time that come back again? I'll be curious, but this weekend, as a reminder, Wake Forest is a game that's the following week, and we've got a bye. So unfortunately, we're in a bit of a holding pattern. Do I think it's going to work out well? No, I don't. This is as wide open as it gets. I would hope Florida State can sign a minimum of about 18 players. That's going to be hard. I know some of them folks in Tallahassee that cover the team, they actually think it's going to be worse than I do based on some of the things that I read today at various places in regards to decommitments and the class coming apart. With Higgins, Surtain, and some other people that are there, I think there's a better chance to keep things together than some might think, but maybe I'm just an optimist on that one area. I could certainly be wrong, but let's see. Normal situations, about half your class, either at least A, decommits, or B, signs elsewhere. Some might decommit, come back, or some might take 2 or 3 visits. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to guess that starting this weekend, we're going to start seeing a bunch of kids that have Florida State commitments next to their name on the internet, visiting other campuses, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Ole Miss, or whether it's LSU, whatever, Texas A&M, you're going to see that. Just be prepared. It's part of the way the world does business right now. When somebody's down, you go in and snatch your recruits. And if things were reversed, Florida State would absolutely do the same. So how many can they keep? I don't know. And again, I understand that Norvell's still technically the coach, but nobody's looking at it that way in the recruiting industry. I can tell you that personally. I'm in it, talking to people, like nobody expects him to be back. And if we don't, that means coaches around the country, et cetera, for the most part don't. It's going to be really, really hard to keep some of these guys from taking trips elsewhere. It is what it is. You just got to do the best you can under those certain parameters. With that, thank you very much for checking out Locked On Seminoles again today. We will see you again tomorrow. Please like and subscribe. This has been Locked On Seminoles.